August, it's over. You think this is September, right? No. This is Craig-tember. This is where the Brewers need to make a run. September is where the teams like the Brewers love to thrive. Look at 18. Look at 19. There is a track record of the team getting it done. And for the Brewers, they've only got 13 more road games the rest of the year. This is their last multi-city trip coming up from the Valley of the Sun. Can't wait to be at Chase Field tonight. Brewers and Diamondbacks, let's get you ready for a huge weekend of baseball next.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning. It is September 1st. Wow. That's amazing to me. This year has flown by. This is it. There's a little over a month to go. Now or never for the Brewers. Welcome to Craig-tember. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm Dominic Cotroneo. This is Locked On Brewers, your only daily podcast dedicated to the Brewers all season long, Monday through Friday. And today's episode is brought to you by Vroom. With Vroom, you can buy a car entirely online and have it delivered straight to you, so you never have to go to a dealership again. So the next time you need to buy a car, just grab your phone and go to Vroom, VROOM.com, and check out thousands of great cars. The Brewers win yesterday, 6-1. It got a little dicey, but a 4-run seventh put it all in the rearview mirror for this one. Brewers got good pitching in this from Freddy Peralta and their bullpen. Taylor Rogers pitched well. Brad Boxberger bounced back. Adrian Hauser, in his first appearance out of the bullpen this year, was solid. Granted, it was garbage time and the air was sucked out of the stadium, but nonetheless, the Brewers got the series when they needed. We're going to recap this game. We're going to look ahead to the Diamondbacks, look around the playoff picture. And to be fair, I am recording live. I've got one eye on the Cardinals and Reds game right now, and I just didn't want to wait much longer to record this episode. When they went to extra innings, that's when I said, all right, I'm going to sit down and start recording. So I got that game in the corner of my eye right now with the Cardinals and Reds in the 10th inning, all tied at 2 right now. The Padres already won yesterday, so the Brewers didn't get any ground on them. And, of course, the Phillies and the Diamondbacks played West Coast baseball yesterday. At the time of recording, the Phillies are up 1-0 only in the second inning right now. So won't know the results of that by the end of this recording. We'll see if we know the results of the Cardinals and Reds game by the end of this one, too. But the Brewers, 6-1 win. Offense was late arriving, if that's fair to say. But once again, runners in scoring position wasn't super, but they got enough done. It wasn't a game that you're going to plaster up on the board saying, look at the offensive approach. They scored 6 runs. They did it without a homer, and they did it with 2 extra base hits. And I would argue one of those extra base hits should have been caught, Willie's double. But for the Brewers, they got it done with the walks. In total, they drew more walks than they struck out. Yohan Ramirez completely lost the zone. The Brewers drew 9 walks, 3 of them to Ramirez, 3 of them to Yajure, and 2 of them to Manny Benuelos. Their only strikeouts, in multitudes anyway, were to the starter, Zach Thompson, who went 4 innings of shutout ball, but they kept him from facing the lineup the third time through, so they went to the bullpen, and it backfired on the Pirates. The Brewers had just about everybody reach base in this game, including pinch hitter Garrett Mitchell. Everyone either drew a walk or got a hit. And in the end, the Brewers still did manage 8 hits in the game, 3 of them coming with a runner in scoring position. And they were kind of a victim of circumstance of how many times they had a runner in scoring position in this game. They left 13 runners on base. 13. And to the naked eye, I'd be like, wait, they scored 6 runs and they left 13 runners on base? It was that kind of day with all the walks that they were drawing. There's traffic all day long, and 3 for 13 isn't terrible if you would to put that out to 100 at-bats. I mean, that's a .230 batting average with runners in scoring position. It's not great, but it's just below league average. So the Brewers would have liked to cash in a little bit more than they did, to say the least, given most of the RBIs in that 4th inning, or that 7th inning, the 4-run 7th, were on bases-loaded walks. But they never had a chance to even swing the bat because Yohan Ramirez was that wild. So forgive me for not bouncing around and parading, saying, look, the Brewers scored 6 runs, the Brewers got back on track. This wasn't the offense I wanted to see them get back on track with, and especially the opponent I wanted to see them get back on track with, because the Brewers, look, the Pirates have no pitching. We know that, and the Diamondbacks do. So this coming weekend is going to be a great test for the Brewers, and I've said it over and over again this week leading up to this series. Do not take the Diamondbacks for their record. They are playing better baseball than their record states. They play in the hardest division in the National League, being the NL West, with the Padres and what the Giants started out with. And then, of course, now the Dodgers still being dominant. And the Rockies a tough place to play always. I mean, you look at the standings, I get it. The AL East is absolutely a bloodbath right now. What's crazy about the American League East is, aside from the Red Sox, they're not going to make the playoffs. But the other 4 teams, there's a chance that those other 4 teams all make the playoffs. You know the Yankees are going to make the playoffs. The Rays are looking like they're going to make the playoffs. And then Baltimore's fighting for a spot, and Toronto is going to be probably in the playoffs in the wild card too. They're all jammed up on the American League side. But for the National League, look, Colorado has starting to fall off here in the second half. But both San Francisco and Arizona have 61 wins entering yesterday. And remember, San Francisco led all of baseball in wins a season ago. And for the Diamondbacks to be hanging in there with them with really one of the youngest rosters in all of baseball, it's really fascinating to see what they got building out in the desert right now. So this is not going to be a pushover this weekend. They play very good baseball at home. Going into yesterday, they had won 5 straight games. By the time you wake up and listen to this, that game will have gone final. So you'll know the result of it and what the Brewers have to do. Either snap a winning streak or try to keep a new one from forming. But going into yesterday, the Diamondbacks are 34-32 at home. They protect their home field well, and it's a interesting place to hit. Ginormous to center field, but hot, dry, ball flies. Keep that in mind. So as things stand right now, again, the Cardinals and Reds are currently in extra innings as I sit here and record this. If the Cardinals win, it will remain a 6-game deficit for the Brewers. If the Cardinals lose, it will be a 5-game deficit for the Brewers in the Central. But because the Padres already won, that's still going to be 2.5 in the wild card no matter what. However, what could make things interesting with the Phillies then playing the Diamondbacks, if they lose again here yesterday, if they end up losing again, they will actually be the team now technically being chased by the Brewers, given that they will have one fewer. They'll have the same number of losses as the Padres, but one fewer win. So they'll technically be a half game back of San Diego, and the Brewers will technically be chasing them. But the point still stands. They don't have the tiebreaker on either Philly or San Diego. Whoever they're going to end up chasing down, they're going to have to outright beat them in record. And what's that going to take here in the final month of the season? That'll come up in the last segment of the show. Brewers, though, the offense was enough, but the pitching is the story. Freddy Peralta, a lot of folks want to get mad about him being pulled after 74 pitches. I was confused, admittedly, very, very confused, seeing Hobie Milner up in the 6th inning with the Brewers trailing 1-0. They did tie it up in the bottom of that 5th inning, and it brought in Taylor Rogers as opposed to Hobie Milner. But as Craig Counsell said after the game, they are just monitoring his body language and monitoring what they're hearing from him. They are not going to push it too hard now in August, per se, yesterday, knowing what they need out of Freddie coming down the stretch. Because let's say the Brewers have the best-case scenario and they make the postseason. They will need Freddie for multiple starts in the postseason if it goes according to plan. You can't just think of, let's get one more inning out of him here and jeopardize his chances of making another start or having to take an extra day or things like that. And for the Brewers, they're going to be begging for that off day coming up a week from Monday. All right, they're still another 10 days away from their next off day. They are not even close to being out of the woods yet. But when the off days come and things start to get a little more regular down the stretch, being able to give arms a breather and set things up for the home stretch, and trust me, the energy and the anticipation of getting to the ballpark with 20 of your last 26 at home, that will help morale of getting things going for the Brew Crew, especially offensively. I'm still worried about the extra base hits, the lack thereof. Yes, they won a game without the home run, but for the Brewers, the sustainable offense is all we've been asking for all season long. They need to find a way to get to it more often. Willie got his 21st double. Hira got his 3rd double. We're going to talk about those lineup adjustments as well. Quick couple of previews here for the Diamondbacks in a second. Before we get there, a quick word from the National Highway Traffic Safety Authority. Are you one of those people that thinks it's okay to drive stoned? What's the worst that could happen? You could end up driving below the speed limit. It's no big deal, right? You are wrong. The truth is your reaction times slow way down when you're high. Not only are you putting yourself in danger, but everyone around you. Talk about a buzzkill. Stop kidding yourself. It's not okay to drive high. If you've been using marijuana in any form, do not get behind the wheel. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high and get a DUI. A message from NHTSA. So the Diamondbacks, again, they're in the middle of playing right now. What do they do well and what do they do poorly? What do they do well is their starting pitching is pretty solid. And looking at the projected rotation coming up this weekend, the Brewers are going to see their two aces in this one. They're going to see Merrill Kelly here today, 11-5, a 2.97 ERA. Brandon Woodruff getting the start for the Brew Crew, 9-3, 3.31. And then tomorrow, Friday, old friend Zach Davies, control freak. You know he knows where to dot pitches. We saw it in Milwaukee. 2-4, 3.82 ERA this season for Zach Davies against Eric Lauer. That's a plot twist, right? The guys that were traded for each other, starting against each other. Lauer's 10-5, a 3.58 ERA this season. Saturday, a slumping Madison Bumgarner might be a huge opportunity for the Brewers to keep things going with the offense. You would hope to have won at least one of the first two games. Corbin Burns will go against Bumgarner. Bumgarner is 6-13 with a 4.87 ERA. Looking at his second half splits right now, he has not been himself. He started out strong, but since the All-Star break, he's got a 7.36 ERA. He's allowed 56 hits in 40 innings, including 7 homers in those 40 innings. He has only struck out 30 batters in the 40 innings. Opponent's hitting 333 off of him in the second half. That's going to be a huge opportunity for the Brewers, and lefties aren't really having an issue with him either. Lefties are hitting 273 off of him, so I wonder what the Brewers are going to do with that on Saturday. And then finally, on Sunday, it'll be Jason Alexander getting the start opposite Zach Gallen, who I will continue to shout it from the rooftops, is the best pitcher that most people don't know about. Zach Gallen, 10-2, a 2.53 ERA. What if I told you, and some diehards know this, what if I told you that both Sandy Alcantara and Zach Gallen were on the Cardinals at the same time? Would you believe me? Yeah, they were. They were part of the Marcell Ozuna trade a few years ago, which talk about things that have aged terribly. So the Cardinals traded for Ozuna from the Marlins in the offseason between 2017 and 2018. For 2 years of Marcell Ozuna, the Cardinals gave up Sandy Alcantara, Zach Gallen, Dan Castano, who also made the big leagues, and Magneuris Sierra, who was always a top prospect for a long time, and he actually played a little bit with Miami last year, and also is now with the Angels. He's not really much of a hitter, but point is, all 4 players traded for Marcell Ozuna ended up in the big leagues, and Alcantara is going to be the Cy Young this year, and Zach Gallen was 9th in Cy Young voting in 2020, and he's going to get top 10 votes again this season, in my opinion, in the National League. That's a crazy trade to look back on for Zach Gallen. And then Zach Gallen was also traded by the Marlins to the Diamondbacks for Jazz Chisholm. He's been traded twice in his career. He was originally drafted by the Cardinals out of the University of North Carolina. It was a straight-up trade. Jazz Chisholm for Zach Gallen. That's crazy to me. Zach Gallen's a great, talented pitcher. You do not want the series to be hinging on him on Sunday to try to get it done against him. What do the Diamondbacks do well? They starting pitch well. The offense, granted, they've been calling up the young guns, and it's been working out really, really well for them. It really opened the door when they traded David Peralta near the deadline to say, all right, some of the old guard, those guys are on the way out. Got to figure out what we have with the new guys coming up. You look at the starting lineup generally. Carson Kelly's the everyday catcher for the most part. Christian Walker, 30 home runs this year while playing Gold Glove first base defense. Ketel Marte, who signed an under-the-radar extension this spring training, and everyone was saying, what the heck are the Diamondbacks doing? Why would they sign Ketel Marte to an extension? Well, it immediately quieted all of the trade rumors surrounding Ketel Marte. It was a relatively fair deal, in my opinion. 5 years for $76 million on the back end of a 5-year, $23 million deal. Those 5 years, $76 million also have a team option for the 2028 season, and his salary would increase each season with a top 7 finish in MVP voting. So there's plenty of incentives here for Ketel Marte, and he's a star on this team. And if the Diamondbacks get going back into the postseason like they were in, I believe it was 2017 was the last time they were in the postseason, surviving the wild card game against the Rockies, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to go back and double check that right now. But Ketel Marte is a type of player that can carry a team moving forward. Shortstop's kind of a weird door right now. Geraldo Perdomo has been their shortstop. It's not really hitting all that much. They lost Nick Ahmed for the entire season due to injury, a Gold Glove type shortstop. He's been out for most of the year. Josh Rojas and Emmanuel Rivera have been a platoon over at third base. Rivera they got from the Royals. Alec Thomas in center, one of their top prospects. And they just called up one of their newest top prospects. He was the number one prospect in baseball, Corbin Carroll, only 21 years old. So listen to the age of these position players for the Diamondbacks. Corbin Carroll, 21 years old. Stone Garrett, 26 years old. Emmanuel Rivera, 26 years old. Jake McCarthy, 24 years old. Cooper Helmo, former Brewers prospect, 27 years old. Dalton Varsho, 25. Alec Thomas, 22. Josh Rojas, 28. He's like the old man of the group. Perdomo's only 22. Marte's only 28. You get what I'm saying here? They have built a core very quietly out there in the West that they are going to be very competitive very soon, and they're going to take this series very seriously against the Brewers as a chance to grade themselves against a quality opponent, a team that they want to feel like they can be competing with consistently next season, and a team that they feel they can match up with to say, hey, the Diamondbacks should be ready to compete for a wild card by next year because we know the Dodgers are going to win the division. They're in a tough boat because they have to set their sights on the wild card. And quite frankly, if they get a little more offense this offseason, they could really, really connect the dots because Christian Walker is leading their team in WAR. Gallen is second. Kelly is third. But what do they do poorly? They have one of the worst bullpens in baseball. It's been a really, really weird stretch. They don't have a closer. It's closer by committee. Mark Melancon has been relieved of his duties as a closer. It's been an odd season for the Shark, but as a team, for relievers, the Diamondbacks this season, their team ERA, I'm pulling it up right now on Fangraphs. Their team ERA for relievers sits in the bottom half of the National League. So the Reds are last in the NL. Rockies are second to last, to be expected in their ballpark. Pittsburgh third to last, and then boom, Arizona, a 4.34 team ERA from their bullpen. So you look at the records of some of the starters, they aren't as big as you would expect. It's because the bullpen has blown a ton of leads. They have 19 blown saves this season. That is near the top in the National League. Only the Cubs, the Brewers, ironically enough, the Marlins, and the Pirates have more blown saves in the National League than the Diamondbacks. Keep that in mind because the Brewers have the third most comeback wins in the National League. Guess who's in second? The Diamondbacks. How wild's that? These games are not going to be over all weekend long, and it's Pacific time, so you're going to have to stay up late for a couple of nights. The Brewers going out west to take on Arizona. Again, tonight will be at 8:40 Central Time, and then tomorrow will also be at 8:40 Central Time, and that's the first pitch time, whereas Saturday will be a little earlier, a 7:10 Central Time first pitch. It'll be 5 o'clock in Arizona, and then on Sunday, it'll be a 3:10 Central, 1 o'clock in Arizona. I just wanted to give you a quick preview of what to expect from the Diamondbacks. Do not take these guys for granted. They're a very, very good team. Let's look at the lineup. Let's talk about something's going well. What do we think is going to happen here on this expanded roster day, as there will be 2 new spots available for the Brewers to add. More on that in just a second. The Brewers now have a 28-man roster, as it is September 1st. And the rule, I think I misspoke on this a couple weeks ago, saying that a player has to play in a game before September 1st. What I meant to say was a player has to be on the 40-man roster before September 1st in order to be eligible for the postseason. So in case you're wondering, yes, Esteury Ruiz is eligible for the postseason, even though he hasn't played in the big leagues yet for the Brewers, because he was already on the 40-man roster. As far as candidates to bring up today, now by the time you're listening to this, you might already know who is going to be the additional player added to the roster. Remember, Mike Brasso was actually taking ground balls yesterday, starting to do some field work. He is on the way back as far as utility man coming off the bench for the Brewers. But if you're going to bring somebody up, I think it should be Ruiz, but then you're just going to have too many outfielders. They're probably going to bring up Pablo Reyes. I mean, if it makes the sense right now because you need an extra infielder with Jace Peterson being back. You've got way too many outfielders. Remember, you can only carry 14 pitchers, so you can't just load up with 15 position players and 13 pitchers, which the Brewers wouldn't do because they need arms right now, and you can't load up with 16 pitchers and 12 position players. No, you got to have a maximum of 14 pitchers. So I would expect Pablo Reyes to get called up, but I would love it if Esteury Ruiz was called up. And something to keep in mind, too, the Brewers have a doubleheader coming up a week from today. And then you will be able to have a 29th man on the roster just for that doubleheader if they need to make a spot start.
As far as the bullpen goes, I wouldn't be surprised if they call up Jake Cousins, let him get a soft landing in the big leagues, try to get him back on track in the big since he's missed so much of the season. You know what he can do when he's healthy. But taking a quick peek at his AAA numbers this season, he's appeared in 12 games since coming off the injured list. He's striking out more than 13 more 9, but he's walking more than 5 per 9 innings so far this season in AAA. So that's something the Brewers are going to want him to clean up. Maybe they're going to keep him down in Nashville for that reason and that reason alone. This season in AAA, 2.92 ERA, 12 innings. He's got a total of 18 strikeouts in those 12 innings, but also 8 walks and 3 hit batters. He's probably going to stick around. So then, naturally, a guy who's already been up and can eat a couple of innings, Trevor Kelly. Is this going to be the end of the season roster? Who knows? Because Aaron Ashby is still due back. You have Trevor Gott due back as well too soon. Trevor Rosenthal's probably not going to throw a pitch for the Brewers. We've talked about that. But just because they're on the September 1st roster doesn't mean they're going to be on the October 5th roster. Okay? So don't overreact to whatever the moves are today. Lineup-wise, we saw Rowdy Tellez in the lineup yesterday. That was big news. Dealing with knee soreness. Sounds like it isn't very major, just like the Brewers had led on. He was DHing yesterday. He looked rusty after taking a day off. Want to see him get back on track, of course, because they need his bat. They need his glove, especially over at first base. But Keston Hiura needs to stay in this lineup. And this is where the roster crunch is going to come in. What are you going to do with Andrew McCutchen? What are you going to do with Keston Hiura? Are you going to go to a true platoon like we've been asking for a lot of the season, where Kutch only DHs against lefties and Keston only DHs against righties? I wonder how the Brewers are going to play that out. Next, how much is Garrett Mitchell going to play against lefties? He didn't play, obviously, against the left-handed starter or left-handed reliever Manny Benuelos when he came in. They gave the start to Tyrone Taylor, but still gave Garrett Mitchell a pinch hit opportunity in that big 7th inning against a righty. I wonder how much Garrett Mitchell is going to play this weekend against the Diamondbacks. And for the catching position, I've seen some folks wondering, like, what's going on with Victor? What's going on with Omar? They're just tired, man. It's that time of year for catchers. This is the dog days. This is what you hear about saying, like, man, this is the hard time of year to play and get yourself up and ready to play. Yeah, their legs are really heavy right now. So cut them some slack. It's a long season, and maybe some desert air and some heat will get them back going in the right direction. Christian Yelich continues to draw walks, continues to run well. I mean, his average continues to climb. And when I look at Yelich's standard slash line, all right, a 261 batting average, okay, much better than last year, 248 last year, and part-time work because he was injured for a lot of the year last year. 359 on base is pretty much on par with his on base from last year, but the catch, though, of course, is it comes in more plate appearances. He's actually walking slightly less and striking out virtually exactly the same as he was last season. But now, being in a leadoff spot, a little more pressure on that spot to get on base as opposed to trying to drive the ball when he was batting 2 and 3 hole last season. Slugging is still not there. It is better than last year. He's nearing 400 for his slugging at 390, a 749 OPS, which is better than league average. League average is barely over 700. I know you're not paying him to be league average, but it's a step in the right direction for Christian Yelich. And if you're a believer in weighted runs created plus, where 100 is league average, anything below 100 is below average, anything above 100 is above average, he's got a 112 weighted runs created plus. So he's 12 points higher than league average this season. He's doing his role, okay? I like this lineup. And the reason why I don't panic about this offense is because you've seen them get hot before, and when they get rolling, they are lethal. Like we saw coming out of the All-Star break, like we saw earlier at the beginning of May, like we saw at the end of April. The Brewers have it in them, in their offense, to get hot collectively at the right time. They can be carried by one guy, like a Rowdy, like a Hunter Renfroe, but they're at their best when you listen. I mean, Christian Yelich gets on base. Willie Adames then lines an opposite field single or a double or whatever. Now you got second and third for Rowdy Tellez, Hunter Renfroe, Colton Wong, Andrew McCutchen, Keston Hiura. What's wrong with that? You would take that. I would take that. I'm excited about that. Then Garrett Mitchell lurking at the bottom of your order, or whoever you call up, Uri Ruiz. I think they have it in them. I really do believe that. I will believe it until I am proven wrong, and until it is October 5th. It is Craig-tember. This is when the Brewers start to thrive. By the way, I want to finish the thought on the Diamondbacks as far as the last time they made the postseason. They actually last made the postseason in 2017. Like we said, they won the wild card game, but then lost in the DS in 2017 to the Dodgers. They got swept by them that season. That was when they still had Paul Goldschmidt as well. They're trying to make it back to the playoffs for the first time since losing Paul Goldschmidt, of course. Anyway, I digress. Brewers and Diamondbacks coming up this weekend. 4-game set. We'll have a podcast for you tomorrow, first thing in the morning as well. I will be on Brewers Extra Innings for all 4 games as well, post-game coverage, so you can tune into that live if you're up late with us, or you can wait for the podcasts. Those are posted as a podcast as well. That's over on Apple Pods or on 620WTMJ.com, or you can use this one as your first thing in the morning, less than 30 minutes pod, get you out and going on your day. All right, let's have some fun. By the time you're listening to this, I'm probably sweating my you-know-what off coming out in Arizona. It's 105. It's good to be home. It's a dry heat. You've heard all the lines. It's where I'm from, man. So I'm very excited about it. Brewers got the series win. That's all that matters. And one last quick check here before we sign off at the Cardinals and Reds game and extra innings. They're in the 11th. Go figure. I'm glad I didn't wait to record this podcast. So by the time you wake up, you'll know if the Cardinals won, the Brewers are still 6 back. If the Cardinals lost, they're 5 back. All right? Not the end of the world. Thank you for listening. Holler at you from Arizona. Until next time, keep on swinging.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.